Okay, so Joey, thank you very much for sending me this draft. I'm just going to give you a little bit of feedback, but I think you're getting very, very close. And so it'll sound like I'm going to say a lot of stuff, but it's because I think there's just some key pieces that you should consider. Um, Introduction looks good, although I think that maybe this last point here, it would be good to say something about um, do not always know about food initiatives like FreshBucks, just to close the loop on that. I don't know, instead of maybe you take out local, and then you say no. However, food access organizations do not always know about food initiatives like FreshBucks or such as FreshBucks, whatever. Then he moves on to how can we better connect food assistance programs to food access organizations. Your internship, good. Conducted survey, good. I think that if you could try to take out a word, I think maybe if you take out one word here, then you could actually get FreshBucks onto one line. So you could say, I conducted a survey of different food access organizations, food banks, churches, etc. And in King County, not around King County, but in King County, um, and then I don't know, you say to see if they were promoting FreshBucks, you could just say you conducted a survey about FreshBucks to different food access organizations. Just a little change of phrasing so you can get that all into one line. That'll keep it from being too crowded. I think that because I think that you need to have more information in your caption here. First of all, this should be figure 1 because that's a figure from your internship. It should be figure 1 and it should be referenced up in here, probably with that first bullet point. And I think that you should be more information in the caption about the fact that you were at the Carnation Farmers Market desk assisting with the SNAP program. That would be my suggestion there. So if that one's figure 1, then this one becomes figure 2. I think that that's good. Again, you might go with a slightly smaller size to your caption font just so you can fit more information in there. Remember that the captions really should stand alone. It's okay for the captions to be a little bit more detailed. People are generally more accepting of getting that detail from captions. So, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your survey, of the images, that kind of needs to be in there so that people can understand the connection. They should be able to look at the figure and the caption, and that should all be self-explanatory without going to the text. All right, this all looks good. I do think you have room to put in some additional caption information. I think this figure here with the stick figures, I think that could be improved a little bit because I think, unfortunately, the colors don't show up extremely well. I'm afraid because the lines are so thin that might be a problem. I will send you some examples of some other types of figures, some infographic figures that you might want to use instead. It's sort of the difference between using stick figures and using like actual filled characters. The thing I would say about your infographic guys here is another idea is to just try to thicken up the lines so that maybe the ones that are representative of the 5 out of 12 are much thicker. You really just want to make those pop out a little bit more. The other thing is instead of 5 out of 12, you could just say roughly 40% because 5 out of 12 is just a little over 40%. So you could instead of doing 5 out of 12, you could do 4 out of 10 if you understand what I'm saying. It might clarify it, and then you could put in the caption roughly 40% of respondents suggested expanding the program would improve it by providing better access. That you just want to provide a little bit more information in that caption. The last one, what is needed, food access organizations to, instead of saying promote food access, maybe the greater educational materials for, because you're really making the point of educating food access organizations about the benefits of the program and about the details of the program so that they can better promote it. So you want to specify that here, because I think in your results section, I think the first one should be public outreach, right? To separate it from this last point, public outreach. Second one is increased availability, and I don't know that you need to say of FreshBooks, because again, you're trying to generalize to food access programs and how we better connect them. So increased availability, and then you're using your evidence to support that. And I think that's a good point, that making the program year-round and probably more widespread could keep people and would engage more organizations and keep them engaged. The last one, I think educate food access organizations is good, and you point that out. So this is a very, everything's flowing really well. Just a couple of key points, a little bit of the wording there. Again, like I said, the second point, so the first one may be public outreach, second one is increased availability, and then, because you're trying to make this more general, I think I would take out the of FreshBooks piece there. Getting down into the significance, I think that there's an opportunity here for, some slight change in wording. I also think that there, right now you have, so you have funding, right? So one of the things I was thinking is you could use some sort of maybe bold word at the beginning of each one of these bullet points to essentially highlight what the significance is. You're saying that there needs to be more funding, so funding would be the like a key word that you would write out, and then the thing that I would say is that your first point, your second point is essentially making the increasing the number of locations that the market is that FreshBooks is available, and then increasing its availability around the seasons. So they could be potentially combined. Just a point that you might want to consider. I think that create a position specifically to engage in outreach and education about FreshBooks. These are all interesting ideas. I wonder if they could be summarized a little bit more succinctly. But still good. My big thinking, or my thinking had been that if you could potentially shrink this down into 2 bullet points, you might open up a little bit of space that you could actually move your FreshBooks logo down here. That way you have a visual in each column rather than crowding it up into this point. And the idea behind that would be that it would become another visual that you could talk about potentially highlight the value in greater outreach to make the FreshBooks brand more well known, right? So it would be a figure that you could then reference with your first point here, and so you would be referencing figure 1 and then this would be figure 5 if you did it that way. Just a thought, because I think that you probably could move your acknowledgments down just a little bit. You could probably summarize these in terms of funding for greater availability, spatially and temporally. So basically seasonally, as well as making it more widespread in the area. And then this idea of a dedicated manager for FreshBooks that could focus on outreach and education. I think that's a good point to make. So, just making those 2 points. And then also, you really are focusing on FreshBooks in your significance, but remember the idea behind the significance section is to take your results and make them think about them in the broader context. So instead of talking about instead of talking about just talking about fresh bucks, talk about farmers markets and think about, throughout the country what needs to happen. I think the lesson here is that in order for a food access program like this to work, it needs to be widespread regionally, so that people know about the brand, and can access it regularly, so it can become a regular part of people's meal planning or nutrition planning. And then part of that is having a person dedicated to managing the program and promoting it and reaching out as well. All right, so those are my points to you. I think, now that I think about the stick figure diagrams, I think that they're great. You just want to make them darker. I think the colors aren't on the stick figures aren't different enough. So another idea is you could fill in the heads on the 4 out of 10, and that would help. I would make their bodies bold or use thicker lines and then fill in the heads, and that would definitely differentiate them from the others. All right, otherwise your fonts look good in terms of the size. I don't see any glaring typos, but please do make sure you check with someone else, and have a friend or someone look this over very closely before you get it printed. And like I said, the captions maybe could use a little bit more detail, so that they stand alone. But this is where having somebody who hasn't read the poster before look at it, because then they can give you a sense for what's clear and what's maybe not so clear. All right, good job on this. It's really looking good, man. And I'm excited to see it at the symposium. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye bye.